Hello and welcome to class time. Today we'll be looking at the letter of complaint, right? Now, again, you may ask yourself, what is a letter of complaint and why do we need to write letters of complaint, right? Now, think about it, right? And even though we are living in the technology era, right? And persons might be saying, we don't have or see the need to be writing those things. We can just make a phone call or just go in person. But sometimes those don't work. So when those don't work, then we resort to writing the letter of complaint. But for me, we know that I don't just jump into the lesson. We have to look at some things first before we get into it. So let us look at the lesson objectives for today. All right, lesson objectives. Students should be able to, 1, state the definition of the letter of complaint. 2, identify situations that require writing a letter of complaint. 3, list the parts of the letter of complaint. 4, develop competency in writing by writing a letter of complaint. All right. So we're going to be working from home. All right. Now, let us look at this scenario. What would you do if you bought a cell phone and when you got home, you realized that it's not working? Would you, A, call the store to inform them of the issue? B, would you go to the store and create a scene? C, would you call it a loss and purchase another one? Think about it, right? Think about all these situations. What would you do, right? Now, think about it for a little while and then we'll begin. All right, now, going through all of this scenario and these options. Now, for me, I would go to writing the letter of complaint, right? And we're going to see why it is that we would need to write a letter of complaint. All right, now firstly, we need to understand what a letter of complaint is. Now here it says a letter of complaint is a type of letter written to address any type of wrongdoing, offense, grievance, resentment arising out of a product, service, etc. It is used to raise your concern about unfair things and seek a productive outcome. All right. Now, remember the options that we looked at before? Going to the store to create a scene. What were the other options? Right? Now, these are things that we would avoid doing. Right? Now, in order to get proper redress, right, after we have gone through going in to report the matter, even speaking to the supervisor or the manager and nothing comes out of it, then we would resort to writing the letter of complaint, right? Now, one thing that we need to remember, we have been looking at letter writing so far, right? We have done the application letter. Now, what we need to remember, right, is that the letter of complaint is also a formal document, right? So we have to bear several things in mind. So because it is a formal document, we have to be mindful of our tone, the language that we use, right? We have to remember that we are not writing a letter to our friend, right? We are conducting or we are writing a business letter, right? Because the letter of complaint is, in fact, a business letter. All right, so it is a formal document, so all the conventions of a formal document or a formal letter should be followed. All right, continuing with the definition, it is a fundamental right and duty of a citizen to seek justice arising out of any injustice. And the first step toward it is filing a complaint. It inspires other troubled consumers, influences the concerned authorities to take proper action, and makes the defaulters more liable, responsible, and responsive. All right. So it is a good thing to write a letter of complaint, right? And as we go on, we will see that it helps us and it creates a what do you call it now, a file, right? It is on file that you made a complaint, right? Because when you go in and you make a report in person, sometimes the person to whom you spoke to or with whom you spoke with did not write down what you came there to speak about, right? So there's nothing on record, right? But if you wrote a letter, right, or if you emailed it, it is there, right? Because the date will be there. So if you go back to your sent items in your email, you will have the evidence to prove that you actually wrote the letter of complaint. So it is there as evidence. It is there for on record. All right. All right. So a letter of complaint can be one of the following types. One, personal complaint letter. And the type of complaint letter you write, this is the type of complaint letter you write on your own individual level pertaining to your individual grievances, is referred to as a personal complaint letter. All right. Two, professional complaint letter. It is a type of complaint letter that is written on behalf of the organization pertaining to issues that are affecting the organization as a whole. All right. So we have two types, the professional complaint letter and the personal complaint letter and the professional complaint letter. Now, the personal complaint letter would be, say, if I went to a store and purchased a cell phone and then I found out that the cell phone, when I took the cell phone home, I found out that it is not working, right? Then I would write a personal letter of complaint, right? Because it is something that happened to me, right? So it is personal. Now, a professional letter of complaint, right, would be done if you're working within an organization and something happened within the organization and you are writing on behalf of said organization. All right, so that is the difference between the personal letter of complaint and the professional letter of complaint. Please bear that in mind. All right, now when do we write the letter of complaint, right? Think of the scenario that we looked at where you went and you purchased the cell phone and then you realize that after taking the cell phone home, it was not working. What would be the first thing that you do, right? Would you go to the business place and create a scene, destroy the store or whatever it is? No, right? There are several actions or steps that you would take, right, before you write a letter of complaint. All right. Now, you should discuss your matter of complaint with a business representative as the first step of getting an answer. If your concern is not resolved by an email or a phone call, only then should you write one. Do not haste to inform the Consumer Protection Agency. Now, why do we say this, right? You know, sometimes we might be a little heated about what it is that we are experiencing, so we act on impulse, right? Now, it is best that we don't act on impulse, right? Just as how when we are in an organization, there is a chain of command if something happens, right? So if something happens, you would go to your supervisor first, right, before you jump and go to the CEO, right? When you're writing the letter of complaint, there's also steps that you take before you actually write the letter of complaint. So if you emailed or if you sent an email and you got a satisfactory response, then you would not need to write a letter of complaint. But if you went to the store in person, spoke to the supervisor, nothing was done, then you decided to send an email, nothing was done, then you decided to make a phone call to the manager, and then nothing was done, then you would resort to writing a letter of complaint, all right? And remember that when you write the letter of complaint, it is there as evidence, it is on record, right? Because you can go back and say, okay, then I wrote this letter of complaint on March 21, 2021, right? So it is always there, all right? So these are the steps that you would take before you actually write the letter of complaint. All right, what you must know. Be as clear as possible. When talking about your problem about an item, say a phone, don't forget to mention the serial or model number, which branch you got it from, and if possible, the name of the seller. Furthermore, you can include details of your discussion with the seller. Now, all this information, right? Why do you think all this information is important? All right. Now, even though you might have an iPhone 12, right? Yes, Apple makes all iPhones, right? But guess what? All iPhone 12s are not the same because they carry different serial numbers. So if I have an iPhone 12 and someone else has an iPhone 12, yes, they're the same, but there is something that determines that they are different, and that would be the serial or model number, right? So include all of that information so that they have all the specifics there, so that they can pull up their record to say, okay, then the manufacturer just indicated that there's a defect with it or something, right? So all this information is very, very important, right? That is why they are suggesting that we include all of this. So the serial or model number, right? The branch. So say, for example, you bought at a branch in Kingston, right? The name of the branch, right? And the name of the branch, right? That would be helpful, all right? And if possible, as I mentioned, the name of the seller. So all these are very important. All right? Remember that they are the ones who can fix your problem. It isn't necessary, and most times it actually isn't the case that the person reading your letter is responsible for your trouble. So instead of sounding angry, threatening, or even intending sarcasm, do not insult or write in a belittling tone, but also don't sugarcoat the issue. All right. Now remember, we mentioned that the letter of complaint is a business letter, and all the conventions of a business letter must be followed, right? So the first thing is that the letter of complaint is a formal document, right? So don't act on impulse. When you're writing the letter, yes, the situation or the problem that you're having is still fresh and you're upset about it. But guess what? As it says here, the person who you are writing to may not be the one who is responsible for the problem that you are having, right? So do not be disrespectful, right? Now, do not use indecent language, right? And have you ever been in a situation where you're reading a letter or an email and you feel attacked based on the wording of said email or letter? You feel attacked? Do not write your letters of complaint like that, right? I know that you might be upset, you might be angry, but we have to think about the fact that we could be in that situation. Can you imagine you had nothing to do with the issue and you're reading this letter and you feel as though you are being attacked? No, right? So you do not want to feel that way, so do not allow someone else to feel that way. And you know too, sometimes, as my mother always say, and a lion mouth take time and draw it out. Yes, because sometimes if you are upset and disrespectful, you will not get any redress, right? Because if you are disrespectful to me, I'm not going to want to help you, right? But if you're calm and respectful, then the person will move mountains to assist you, all right? So at the end of the day, yes, you are upset, but remember, you need to be respectful, all right? So do not write your letters and by attacking the person, right? Be calm, all right? If there are work orders, receipts, cash memos, or any other document that might be helpful to solve the issue, include that. Send the copies and keep the original. If you have sent previous emails or written to another representative or seller, try to include that too. Because guess what? At the end of the day, as I mentioned before, you want the situation to be resolved, right? So anything that you can use as proof or evidence, include that. And remember, always keep the original, right? Send copies, but keep the original for yourself, because at the end of the day, we are gathering a dossier, right? So we want to have proof, right? So that if it goes further, then we can say, I have all of this documentation, right? All right. All this talk might make you think that only angry and offended customers complain about faulty products and services. But no, employers can also send a complaint letter to their employees. The letter is simply tailored to the need of the writer. The basic format still remains the same. So what they're saying here is that persons don't just write letters of complaints when they are having an issue, if they bought a product or the service that they're getting is unsatisfactory. No, right? An employer can write a letter of complaint to their employee, right? So bear that in mind, that letters of complaints are not just specific to an issue that you might have with a product or a service, right? Employers can write or may write letters of complaints to employees and vice versa. An employee can write a letter of complaint to an employer. All right? Remember that. All right. Now, in writing your letters of complaints, be authoritative. Don't ramble. Right? Now, remember, we always say that when we're writing business letters, we should be concise. Get to the point, right? So we don't want to say that, okay, then, imagine I had to take the bus and the bus broke down, and then now after I reach, I sweat. Then I get me by the phone and then I go home, the phone now work. No, right? We don't want to know all of that, right? Just stick to the specifics and keep it moving. As it says, don't ramble. Just stick to the facts. That is what the person who is going to help you wants, right? So all of the things that you experienced before, yes, they're important, but it is not important to the issue or the matter at hand. All right. Proofread for grammar and spell checking. Right? So whatever it is that we're writing, a letter, right? Whatever it is, ensure that you proofread, right? So you might ask someone to read it for you to see if they can identify any errors, because sometimes we overlook errors, right? So proofread and spell check. Please remember, we are writing a formal document. We are not writing a friendly letter, right? It is a formal document, and most of the times, these letters of complaints are placed in a file, right? So that they can go back to them, all right? So remember, it is formal, so your language must be formal. So ensure that you proofread and spell check, all right? Proofread for grammar, right, and spell check. All right. Now, what is the importance of a letter of complaint? A letter of complaint is important because it puts your complaint on record with the company. Haven't I been saying that? Right. Proof. All right. It helps preserve any legal rights you may have in the situation. It ensures that the company knows your side of the story. It helps to get government agencies involved in your case if it becomes necessary, and can alert the agencies to any questionable business practices that the company may have. Can lay the foundation for any future legal case and help you in drafting later letters if you need to write more than one. Let the company know you are serious about pursuing your complaint. Some businesses may ignore your complaint unless they see something in writing. All right. Now, before we get to the format, now remember I kept saying to you proof, right? You want to have proof. You want to have documentation that you actually made a letter of complaint. Now remember, if we remember what was said before in the previous slide, some persons or some employees tend to overlook complaints, right? So you go in, nothing is done. You write you make a phone call, you send an email and nothing is done. But when you actually write the letter of complaint, right, then they will realize that you are serious, all right? So remember, we are compiling or we want to ensure that we have proof, right? Documented proof, all right? Now, we're moving on now to the format of the letter of complaint, right? Now, remember, as we've been looking at, the letter of complaint is a business letter, right? And I keep saying it is a formal document, right? Now, remember, we looked at the format for the application letter where we looked at the block format or the semi-block format, right? It is the same format that we would use when we are writing the letter of complaint. But most persons tend to use the block format when they are writing business letters on a whole, right? And remember what the block format is. If you're uncertain, check your notes, all right? Or you can go back to the YouTube that specifically looked at the letter of application or the cover letter, all right? Now, format for the letter of complaint. Now, in this one, we do have two addresses, right? So we are looking at first the sender's address. And who would be the sender, right? Now, if I am the one who has the complaint or the problem, I would be the one who would be sending the letter. So I would be the sender. So my address would need to be there. All right, so the sender's address is usually put on the top left-hand corner of the page. And if you realize, based on the information that we have here, they are speaking about using the block format. All right, date. The sender's address is followed by the date just below it. That is on the left side of the page. This is the date at which the letter is being written. It is to be written in expanded form. Now, if you are writing the letter today, right? Today's date is the date that you should include, right? And what they mean by, what would they mean when they say it should be written in expanded form? Does anybody know? Expanded form, writing the date in expanded form, what does that mean? It means that instead of writing the 12th of the 3rd, 2021, no, you would write March 21 or March 12, 2021. That is what it means when they say expanded form. Do we understand? All right, beautiful. Receiver's address. Whether to write to above the address depends on the writer's preference. Make sure you write the title, name, position, etc. of the receiving official as the first line of the address. Now, this may change a little because what if you do not know the name of the person to whom you're writing to, right? So, if you do know the name, then you would include it. All right, so on screen we have Examination Hall, Sector 20, Chandigarh. Right? Now, this would be the sender's address, right? My address. So if I am the one who is writing the letter, my address would be here. All right. And if you realize, after the address, then we skip a line and we have the date. Very good. Now, in this case, I do not know the name of the person to whom I am writing. So I just included the name of the place that I purchased the item and the address, right? MS Oxford Publishing House, Consumer Complaint Division, London. All right, that is what we would include there. All right, now we're moving on to the salutations and the subject. All right, salutations. Now, anybody remembers the name or the other name for the salutation? Greeting, very good. All right, now salutations. This is where you greet the person you are addressing the letter to. Bear in mind that it is a formal letter, so the greeting must be respectful and not too personal. The general greetings used in formal letters are sir or madam. Remember we looked at that? All right, so I keep saying the letter of complaint is a formal letter, right? It's a formal document, so you or the tone should be formal. All right. Now, remember we said that if we're uncertain of the name of the person to whom we're writing to, then we would write sir or madam. All right? Subject. Then we sum up the purpose of writing the letter in one line. This helps the receiver focus on the subject of the letter in one glance. it is important to underline the subject. All right? So say, for example, I am the one who purchased a phone and I found out that the phone is defective. What do you think we could include in the subject line? Right? So remember, the subject is outlining the purpose of the letter. All right. So subject, complaint regarding receipt of wrong set of books. Right? So from the get-go, when this person picks up the letter, they know before they actually start reading the body of the letter, they know what the issue is. All right? So here we have the subject, and then we have the salutation, right? So we just looked at the subject and the salutation. So remember, they said that the purpose of the letter is highlighted in the subject. And remember to underline your subject. All right, the body, right? This is where the things will come out now. All right, the body. This is the main content of the letter. It is either divided into 3 paragraphs or 2 paragraphs if the letter is briefer. The tone of the content should be formal. We can't stress this enough. Do not use any offensive language. Remember, when I said that we should not use any expletives, this is what I'm talking about. Do not use any offensive language. All right. Another point to be kept in mind is that the letter should be concise and to the point. And always be respectful and considerate in your language. Right? Now, formal document, right? Remember, we want redress. We don't want it to be a situation where the person does not help us any at all, right? Because as I mentioned, if I'm reading a letter and you are rude to me, right, I will be hesitant to help, right? Remember, you're writing to this person. This person may not be the cause of the problem that you are having. And even if they are, remember, you want it to be a situation where it goes further, right? Say to the court, and then the judge is going to say, but you are rude. You are rude. You are disrespectful. So why do you want this person to help you? 2 wrongs don't make a right, right? So you ensure that you do the right thing. All right. So the body should include short introductory paragraph, right? And this should provide details about the product or service that is the subject of the complaint. Include dates, location, and the specifications about the item or service. So remember, when we looked at including the branch that the item was purchased, the model or serial number, right? The name of the place that the item was purchased and the name of the item, right? So these are things that you would include in the introductory paragraph. All right. Then we state the issue with the item or service. Provide details as to the cause. This may include malfunction, billing issues, details that were not disclosed, etc. Right? So this is where you get more into detail as to what about the problem that you are having, right? Moving on. Indicate how you would like them to resolve your problem. Provide specifics about what you are seeking. All right, so you're writing a letter of complaint and you're telling this person about the problem, right, with the phone, right, as I mentioned before, right? All right, so you're telling them that you carry on the phone and the phone not turning on, right, and the buttons are not pressing or whatever it is, and you leave it there. All right? You are the one who is having the issue, you know. You are the one that is having the problem, right? So you find out that the phone is not working. What do you want to be done? How do you want the issue to be resolved? So you can't just tell them about the issue that you're having and not tell them what you would want them to do, right? And remember, even though you want some redress, be careful with how you word this part. So don't demand and say, Mama, I want a new phone, I mean, not take nothing less. No, don't do that, right? Remember, it's formal. So you have outlined the problems, right? And then now you are going to tell them what you would like them to do. So the phone is not working, right? Then you may express to them that I would like for the phone to be repaired, or you have several options. So it's either you want the phone to be repaired, you want your money back, or you would like a new phone, right? So you have several options. So you can outline these options, and then you can close off your letter, basically, right? But don't leave them hanging, right? So they're getting this letter. Allow them or give them the option, right, that you want, how you want the situation to be resolved. So give them some options, or you can give them one option that would suit you. All right. Indicate you are including copies of the transaction document. Now, this is why it is important that you keep your receipts. Whether you're purchasing food or anything, right? Ensure that you keep your receipt. Now, what if we were living in an era where there were no cameras, right? So you went into the store and you purchased this phone. And after you purchased the phone, you're glad. You skip out of the store, man, and you're glad. And you hurry up and go home. And when you go home, you realize the phone isn't working, and then you can't find the receipt. Uh-oh, what do? Now, many places will not pay any attention to you because guess what? You don't have the ultimate evidence that you purchased something from their store, right? So there were no cameras there for them to go back to say, okay, then yes, you did come into the store to purchase the phone, right? So there are no cameras. What do you have as proof that you purchased the item? So that is why I don't throw away my receipt, and I throw away my receipt when the ink rub off. Right? I keep my receipts because anything can happen and I have to return the item. So keep your receipts. So you would have your receipt as proof that you purchased the item. All right. Indicate you look forward to their reply within a specific time. So give them a timely, a specific time that you would want them to respond to you. So when you realize that you have given them 2 weeks to respond and they did not respond, then you would take action, right? So you gave them 2 weeks and nothing was done within the 2 weeks, no one replied to you or anything, then you would know what you need to do after that, all right? All right, now we're going to be looking at the body of the letter of complaint. Right? So here, remember, we're looking at the this person purchased a set of books, but it was not the specific set of books that they purchased that they got. All right. So on February 1, 2019, I bought a book set, order number 000154, to be delivered to Chandigarh, Sector 20. See? Specific, right? So the order number is there. So they can go back and look, right, to see, look on their purchase order to see that this person actually purchased these books. To my dismay, I have not received the set I ordered for and have instead received the wrong book set. I am highly disappointed. To resolve the problem, I would appreciate it if you could replace the wrong book set with the one originally ordered. Please let me know as soon as possible what action you propose to take. I look forward to hearing from you within the next 10 days. Enclosed are copies of the transaction document and the receipt. I look forward to your reply and a resolution to my problem, and will wait until the aforementioned time before seeking help from a consumer protection agency or the Better Business Bureau. Please contact me at the above address or by phone at, right, and the person has indicated their number. Now, what do we notice about this letter? Now, if I got a letter like this, if I owned the bookstore and I received a letter like this, I would want to help this person, because for me, this letter of complaint is beautifully written, right? Now, though the person is upset that they got the wrong set of books, you did not hear it in the letter, right? Though the person expressed that they were highly disappointed, the words that were used did not indicate such, right? The person was speaking or writing in a very calm tone, right? So though the person is upset, maybe when the person writing the letter, them are huff and puff, right? But they remembered that they are writing a formal document, and in order for them to get redress, they have to bear in mind how they write, the tone, right? So this letter is beautifully written, right? Now, if you were working at that bookstore and you received a letter of complaint like this, wouldn't you want to assist? Wouldn't you jump out of your chair to try to assist the person? That is what you want, right? You want help, so you ensure, and as I mentioned before, my mother always say, "An a lion mouth, take time and dry it out." So you want the help, so you write beautifully, right? Calmly, right? Do not class up the people them, tell them all kind of things. No, right? Just write a beautiful complaint letter, and trust me, you will get redress. All right. All right, so we're moving on to the complimentary close. At the end of your letter, we write a complimentary closing. The words "yours faithfully" or "yours sincerely" are used. Now, why do we use these words in the complimentary closing? We use them because it is a formal document. It's a formal letter that we are writing, right? And remember, as I said to you before, you do not know to whom you are writing. In some instances, you do not know to whom you are writing, right? What if you are writing to the CEO, right? You have to bear all of these things in mind, right? So it is a formal document, so you have to, your tone must be formal, all right? The signature. Here, finally, you sign your name, and then write your name in block letters beneath the signature, followed by your designation. This is how the recipient will know who is sending the letter. All right? So, you've written a beautiful letter, right? And you close your letter off, right? And it is suggested that you don't just put your names there, you include your signature. Right? And remember, it is different if you are sending an email. But if it is a situation where you have printed the letter and you're going to send it off by post, right? You include your signature. Now, remember, we are looking at having evidence, right? Putting things on a record, right? So we are doing all the things, right? Putting things in order that if we do not get any redress here, and when we take it to, say, the Consumer Affairs Commission, right? We have all our ducks in a row, right? So this is what we want, right? So we have to bear all of these conventions in mind. All right, and here we have an example of the complimentary closing. Yours faithfully, name, and your signature. All right, now, tips for writing the letter of complaint. Now, this is just to cement all of what we have discussed so far, right? Now, here it says, although the motive of the letter of complaint is to vent out your grievance and frustration, it is imperative that you use a tone that is polite and simple. Try to be formal and avoid using offensive and disrespectful words. We can't stress this enough, right? Be respectful, right? And, sometimes it is good if we can put ourselves in other person's shoes. And I have to applaud persons who work in the service industry, because many a times they encounter persons who are so disrespectful, and I wonder how it is that they go about keeping their cool, right? So if you do not want something to happen to you, don't do it to others, all right? Make sure that you introduce yourself properly. Now remember that you are not writing a friendly letter, right? It is a business letter that you're writing, and it is a formal document, right? So introduce yourself properly. So you are not talking to your friend Marcia. So you're not going to say, "What go on, Marcia?" or "Hi, Marcia, long time no see." No, right? Those are not things that you include in a formal letter, right? Just pretend as though you're writing to someone that you don't know. And in many cases, you are writing to persons that you do not know. All right. The purpose of writing should be loud and clear, right? So you are the one who is having the issue. Make it known the exact issue that you're having, right? Don't skim over anything, right? Ensure that you explain exactly what is happening. You're not going to be writing on and on and on, but you want them to understand what it is that you're writing about and the issue that you are having. Do not deviate from the topic and write to the point, right? Don't deviate. So remember I said to you, if you're going to be talking about the fact that the phone is not working or whatever it is, don't talk about the fact that, me stop from work and me go buy the phone and now the phone now work. You stopping from work to go and purchase the phone is not of any importance. So you would not include that part, right? Just speak about the specifics, right? The factual information. Stick to that, right? So we don't want to know the fact that you stop from work. That is not important, right? The issue is you bought the phone and the phone is not working. What exactly is wrong with the phone, right? The phone is not turning on. You opened the phone and you saw water in the phone, or the buttons are not pressing on the phone. What is it? Or you realize that there's a crack in the screen. Be specific about the issue. Leave out all irrelevant information. Make sure you adhere to the format as it carries marks. And we're looking at, as it relates to marks, we are referring to when it is or if it is that you are presented with a scenario that you are asked to write a letter of complaint in your exam. Now, what we need to remember is that we are looking at informative discourse. And for section B, you may get anything to write in that section. So we have to bear these things in mind, right? So we are looking at the fact that you may be asked to write a letter of complaint for your exam, right? So when we look at marks, this is what we're referring to, the fact that you may be asked to write a letter of complaint for your exam. All right? So now, under section B, for paper 2, you may not know what it is that the examiners might ask you to write, right? So we are preparing you for anything, right? So if you are given a letter of complaint or an application letter or whatever it is or a notice, you will be prepared to do that, right? So we are teaching you what it is to include, right, when you're writing your exam, right? So we're preparing you for your exams. All right. So moving on to another tip. Underline the subject of the letter with a pencil, right? So remember, we're looking at when you're actually writing your exams now. Underline the subject of the letter with a pencil. Also, underlining the main points is very important, but it is advisable that you do it after finishing your exam. Use a pencil and scale for underlining. All right, so all this underlining, just to save time, after you are through writing the letter, then you go back and do all the necessary touches. All right? Make sure you double check for grammatical accuracy and spellings. Remember, these are things that CSEC is marking for, right? They carry marks. So remember, you may lose marks if your sentences are not structured properly, if you misspell a word, right, or so on. So you have to bear all of these things in mind. Because remember, it is English language, so we are going to be marking for everything, all right, as it relates to English. All right. Leave an adequate number of lines between paragraphs to make it look clean, right? Very important, because we want our work to be neat and clean. All right. The presentation is very important, so we mark for those things as well. All right? All right. Now, this is an example of a letter of complaint, right? So if you look at this, you will realize that this person used the block format for their letter of complaint. All right. Now, if you look, you will see that there are two addresses here, right? And those two addresses are the sender's address and the receiver's address. Now, if you notice that this person has included the date below the receiver's address, all right? But if you prefer to use it or to place it after the sender's address, not a problem, all right? Now, as I mentioned before, if you do not know the name of the person to whom you are writing your letter of complaint to, that is fine. So this person does not know the name of the person to whom they are writing to, so they just included customer service manager, that awful company, somewhere awful, URBAD, right? So they just included the person's position and the address, the name and the address of the company. All right. Dear sir, madam. Now, one flaw is that this letter of complaint does not have a subject line, and it is suggested that you include the subject in your letter of complaint, right? So include the subject, because remember, this subject allows the reader to know exactly what it is that the letter would be about. So it is suggested that you include the subject. All right. So here it says, Dear Sir, Madam, I am writing today to complain of the poor service I received from your company on June 12, 2008. I was visited by a representative of that awful company, Mr. Madman, at my home on that day. Mr. Madman was 1 hour late for his appointment and offered nothing by way of apology when he arrived at noon. Your representative did not remove his muddy shoes upon entering my house, and consequently left a trail of dirt in the hallway. Mr. Madman then proceeded to present a range of products to me that I had specifically told his assistant by telephone I was not interested in. I repeatedly tried to ask your representative about the products that were of interest to me, but he refused to deal with my questions. We ended our meeting after 25 minutes without either of us having accomplished anything. I am most annoyed that I wasted a morning and a half day's vacation waiting for Mr. Madman to show up. My impression of that awful company has been tarnished, and I am now concerned about how my existing business is being managed by your firm. Furthermore, Mr. Madman's inability to remove his muddy shoes has meant that I have had to engage the services and incur the expense of a professional carpet cleaner. I trust this is not the way that awful company wishes to conduct business with valued customers. I have been with you since the company was founded and have never encountered such treatment before. I would welcome the opportunity to discuss matters further and to learn of how you propose to prevent a similar situation from recurring. I look forward to hearing from you. Yours faithfully, and the person will have added their name and their signature. All right. Now, what do we notice about this letter, right? The person has expressed their grievance, right? Now, when you are writing your letter of complaint, ensure that you are clear. Your issues are clear and they are accurate, right? Do not add or take away anything, right? Now, in this case, this person was referring to a service that they received, so there was no serial number or anything of the sort, right? Now, remember, it is formal, stick to the point, and ensure that you are respectful, all right?